Zeus versus Typhon. The Last Trial of Olympus. Chapter 1. Gaia's Wrath. The War of the Titans had ended. The battlefield of the cosmos lay in silence, but beneath that silence smoldered the fury of an ancient mother. From the very beginning, Gaia, eternal earth, the primordial mother of gods and giants, had watched her children rise and fall. She had seen Cronus betray Uranus, and she had whispered to Zeus when the time came to overthrow the Titan king. Yet now, as she looked upon the smoking pit of Tartarus, her heart turned heavy with grief. For deep within that abyss, her children, the Titans, groaned in chains, beaten, bound, and cast away. Their cries echoed through the caverns of the underworld, and each cry tore through Gaia's soul like a blade. Once they were rulers of the Golden Age, she whispered, her voice trembling with sorrow and rage. Now they are prisoners, forgotten in darkness. Is this the justice of Olympus? Is this the gratitude of Zeus? Her sorrow grew into anger, and her anger grew into wrath. Gaia's ancient spirit stirred, shaking mountains and making the seas tremble. She would not stand by while her bloodline rotted beneath the earth. The sky above Olympus was bright, yet in the heart of Gaia, storm clouds gathered. The new gods, the Olympians, rejoiced in their throne upon Mount Olympus, feasting in victory. They called themselves eternal rulers, sons and daughters of destiny. But Gaia knew destiny was not finished. No throne is unshakable, she declared to the stars. If Zeus has conquered the Titans, then I shall give birth to a power greater than Titans, a power that no lightning bolt can destroy. Her voice became thunder rolling through the earth. Her breath became the howling winds from the fiery caverns beneath. From the molten veins of the mountains, she began to shape her vengeance. Gaia stretched forth her will into the chasms of the world. From fire and stone, from venom and storm, she gathered the essence of chaos itself. She breathed fury into that essence, shaping it into a monstrous form, a body taller than mountains, wings darker than storm clouds, hands like claws that could rend the sky, and 100 serpent heads that spat fire and poison. This being was no god, no titan. It was terror made flesh. It was destruction given breath. It was her son, her avenger. Gaia looked upon her creation, her eyes burning with both love and hate. You are Typhon, she proclaimed, the last born of earth, the terror of gods, the doom of Olympus. Go forth, my child. Tear down Zeus, break his throne. Free your brothers from the chains of Tartarus. And from the womb of the earth, Typhon arose. The mountains split as his body pushed upward. The seas boiled as his wings unfurled. The sky blackened as his eyes opened, blazing red like suns of fire. His roar shook the heavens, and the stars themselves seemed to tremble in their paths. The world that had just begun to heal from the war of the Titans now faced a darkness greater still. For the wrath of Gaia had taken form, and the age of terror was about to begin. Chapter 2. The Birth of the Monster. From the heart of the earth he came. The mountains groaned and split apart. Rivers boiled into steam, and the trembling sky grew dim as clouds of ash swallowed the sun. The world itself quaked as Gaia's child emerged into the light of day for the first time. Typhon, the storm-born terror. His form was vast beyond measure. His body rose higher than the tallest peaks, his shoulders broader than valleys, and his shadow covered the lands beneath him like an eclipse. Where his arms should have been, coils of serpents writhed, their jaws snapping and hissing, dripping venom upon the ground. From his back spread wings of blackened flame, each beat stirring hurricanes that tore trees from the earth. But it was his heads, dozens of them, snarling, shrieking, each with a serpent's maw breathing fire and smoke that made the gods tremble. His eyes glowed crimson, burning brighter than molten lava, and his roar shattered the silence of creation. From that roar, mortals cowered in their villages. Animals fled into caves. The seas surged, smashing ships upon jagged rocks. Even the stars above seemed to flicker in fear. Gaia stood before him, her ancient face streaked with both grief and pride. "Rise, my son," she commanded. "You are the fury of the earth given flesh. You are vengeance for your brothers. The gods who sit on Olympus have forgotten their place. You will remind them." Typhon bent low, his wings casting a storm upon the earth, and his voice rumbled like thunder. "Mother, I hear the cries of the Titans in Tartarus. Their chains burn my soul, their pain is my rage. I will not rest until Zeus lies broken and Olympus burns." At that vow, lightning cracked across the sky, as though Zeus himself had heard the words. But even the lightning seemed small before the monstrous glow of Typhon's eyes. He took his first steps upon the earth, and each step shook the world. When his clawed feet pressed down, mountains split. When his serpents hissed, the air turned to poison. When his wings stretched wide, storms lashed the seas. All who looked upon him knew this was no simple creature. This was the undoing of gods. Far above, on shining Olympus, the Olympians feasted in their golden hall. They sang songs of victory after the war with the Titans. But as Typhon's roar shook the heavens, their voices faltered. Goblets stilled in their hands, music fell silent, and all eyes turned toward the dark horizon. A shadow was rising, a storm was coming, and with it, the wrath of Earth itself. Chong 3, the first encounter, the shadow of Typhon spread across the lands, blotting out the sun. His serpentine heads hissed fire and smoke, and his wings stirred tempests that lashed sea and mountain alike. Wherever he walked, rivers turned to mud, forests ignited, and mortals fell to their knees in terror. Upon Mount Olympus, the gods gathered in the great hall of Zeus. Hera's face paled as the walls trembled. Poseidon's trident rattled in his grip as storms answered Typhon's call. Even mighty Ares, the war god himself, shifted uneasily at the unnatural roar that shook the heavens. "What is this horror?" cried Demeter, clutching her golden staff. The earth itself writhed as though in agony. Athena's sharp eyes glinted with grim realization. "It is no mere beast. This is the vengeance of Gaia. She has birthed a monster to topple us." All eyes turned to Zeus, seated upon his throne of storm clouds. Lightning flickered in his grasp, his gaze stern and unyielding. "If Gaia dares to raise her hand against Olympus," he declared, "then I shall be the hand that strikes her down." With that, Zeus rose. His voice boomed like thunder, echoing through the peaks. He lifted his arm, and a bolt of lightning leaped into his hand, burning with the fire of the heavens. "Stay here, my kin. The throne of Olympus will not tremble while I stand." He stepped from the golden halls, and the very sky parted at his command. Storm clouds gathered at his back, winds howled at his heels. In an instant, Zeus soared across the heavens, borne upon thunder, until he stood before the rising terror. Typhon loomed, his monstrous form black against the horizon. His serpent heads hissed, eyes glowing red like molten embers. His laughter rumbled like mountains breaking apart. "So, the king of Olympus, comes at last," Typhon roared, his voice a storm that rattled the bones of gods and men alike. "Zeus, breaker of Titans, Zeus, usurper of the heavens, your reign ends today." Zeus raised his arm, lightning dancing around him like a crown of fire. "Creature of chaos," he thundered, "you will find the throne of Olympus is not so easily stolen." Then the sky erupted. Zeus hurled his first bolt, a blazing spear of lightning that split the clouds. It struck Typhon across the chest, searing his scales and filling the air with smoke and ash. Typhon roared, but instead of falling, he lashed back. His wings beat a hurricane, his claws tore peaks from mountainsides, and his serpents spat rivers of flame. The clash shook the world. Seas boiled, forests burned, and mountains crumbled. Mortals gazed upward in horror as the heavens became a battlefield. For hours the two titans fought, lightning against fire, storm against storm. Yet neither yielded. Typhon's body bled smoke and flame, but he stood unbroken. Zeus's thunderbolts cracked the sky, but his strength waned as the battle dragged on. At last, as dusk fell upon the scorched world, both combatants withdrew. Typhon roared in defiance, vanishing into the dark clouds to gather his strength. Zeus hovered upon the winds, his face grim, his hand still clutching the lightning. This was no ordinary foe. This was the greatest threat Olympus had ever faced, and Zeus knew the first encounter was only the beginning. Chapter 4. The Flight of the Gods. The first clash between Zeus and Typhon left the world scarred. Mountains lay shattered, seas churned with unnatural storms, and the air itself reeked of ash and venom. Mortals trembled in their homes, whispering prayers to gods who no longer answered, for even the Olympians themselves felt fear. Upon Olympus, the golden halls quaked as Typhon's roars echoed through the heavens. The gods assembled once more, but their voices no longer rang with certainty. "He cannot be stopped," Hera whispered, her face pale as ivory. "I saw him take Zeus's lightning and rise unbroken. His wings darkened the seas, Poseidon growled, his trident shaking in his grip. The storms he stirs are greater than mine." Even Ares, god of war, shifted uneasily. "He is battle given flesh," he muttered. No army could stand against him. Only Athena's eyes remained steady, though shadowed with grim calculation. "He is no mere foe. He is vengeance born of the earth itself. If Gaia has willed it, then this monster was forged to rival the Sky Father himself." Fear spread like a plague through the hall. The younger gods wept, their immortal voices trembling. Some clutched at one another as the mountain itself shook beneath Typhon's approach. Then came the breaking point. A roar split the skies, louder than thunder, closer than ever before. Flames lit the horizon as Typhon moved toward Olympus, each step tearing the earth apart. His serpents hissed, and venom rained upon the valleys below. The Olympians faltered. Panic seized their hearts. "He comes for us," cried Demeter. "He will tear Olympus stone from stone." In terror, the gods broke ranks. Some fled down the slopes of Olympus, their divine forms dissolving into disguises. They crossed seas and deserts, taking the shapes of animals to escape his gaze. In the land of Egypt, mortals would later remember these visions, gods walking among them as beasts, a falcon, a cat, a jackal, a bull. Only a few remained. Hera, trembling but proud, would not abandon her throne. Athena stood with her spear, though she knew this was not yet the battle that would end Typhon. And at the summit, Zeus alone remained unmoved. lightning burning in his eyes. He looked upon the chaos of his siblings and kin, and his voice thundered across the mountain. Run if you must, hide if you must, but know this: Olympus will not fall while I draw breath. With those words, he turned his gaze toward the horizon, where the shadow of Typhon rose like a second mountain. The monster advanced, the earth cracking beneath his weight, his laughter shaking the heavens. The gods had fled, Olympus trembled, and Zeus stood alone. Chapter 5: The Gathering Storm. The halls of Olympus lay silent, emptied of the gods who had fled in fear. Only the echo of Typhon's roars filled the air, shaking the golden pillars and making the very stones shiver. Yet Zeus did not falter. He stood upon the peak, lightning in hand, his gaze burning with grim resolve. Still, he knew even his strength alone might not be enough to face the terror that Gaia had unleashed. The storm must gather, he muttered, voice rolling like distant thunder. For this foe, I will need more than my arm. With a thought, he vanished from Olympus, borne upon winds swifter than hawks. He descended deep into the heart of the earth, where shadows coiled and flames glowed red against black stone. There, in the caverns of Tartarus, he called upon the ancient allies who had once aided him in the Titanomachia Cyclopes. Zeus thundered, his voice echoing through the abyss. Children of fire and forge, come forth to me. From the glow of molten furnaces, the Cyclopes emerged, giant smiths with a single blazing eye, their hands blackened by flame and steel. They bowed before him, for it was by their hands that Zeus had once gained his thunderbolts. King of the gods, said Brontes, his eye gleaming like an ember. You come again to the forges. What weapon do you seek now? Zeus raised his hand, lightning flickering between his fingers. The storm must be made stronger. My bolts burned the monster, yet he rose unbroken. I need fire fiercer than ever before, a storm that will split even chaos itself. The Cyclopes roared with eager fire, and at once they set to work. Hammers rang, sparks flew, and the forges of Tartarus blazed brighter than suns. With every strike, they shaped new thunderbolts, sharper, heavier, brighter, until their glow lit the caverns like daylight. Take them, Zeus, boomed Starrups. Each bolt is the fury of earth and sky bound together. Let Typhon taste their fire. Zeus gathered the new bolts into his arms, their weight like mountains, their light burning brighter than stars. His power swelled, storms gathering around him, but he did not stop there. He turned deeper into Tartarus, where the chains of Uranus still rattled in eternal darkness. Hecatontures, Zeus bellowed, brothers of 100 hands and 50 heads, hear my call. From the gloom, the towering figures stirred. Each was taller than mountains, each with 100 arms like forests of spears, and eyes burning like torches in the abyss. They had been forgotten by many, but Zeus remembered how they had hurled mountains in the Titanomachy, breaking Cronus's legions. Zeus rumbled Gyges, his 50 throats speaking as one. Why do you call us once more? Because a terror greater than Titans rises against us, Zeus answered. Gaia's spawn, Typhon, threatens to unmake the world. Will you stand idle while chaos consumes earth, sea, and sky? For a moment, the 100-handed ones were silent. Then Kotas's laugh shook the cavern, to hurl mountains once more, to crush chaos beneath stone and storm. We will fight. Call upon us, and the earth itself shall rise at your side. Zeus inclined his head, his eyes burning with fire. Then be ready when the hour comes. As he ascended once more to Olympus, storms gathered thick around him. Black clouds rolled across the skies, thunder cracked like drums of war, and lightning leaped between the peaks. Typhon roared in the distance, but Zeus no longer stood alone. The storm was gathering, and the world trembled in anticipation of the clash to come. Chapter 6. Clash in the Skies. The world held its breath. From the east, the shadow of Typhon spread once more, dark as night and vast as mountains. His serpents writhed and spat rivers of fire. His wings stirred tempests that lashed the seas into towering waves. Every step shook the earth, and mortals fled in terror, crying to gods who no longer answered. From the west, thunder rolled. Zeus rose upon the storm, his new bolts blazing in his grasp, each one forged with the fury of earth and sky. Black clouds followed him, and lightning crowned his brow like fire. The two forces met above the plains, and the heavens themselves split apart. Typhon roared, a sound that cracked mountains and sent avalanches roaring down their slopes. Skyfather, you dare face me again. The earth has birthed me to end you, and I shall tear your throne from the clouds. Zeus lifted his arm, lightning blazing in his hand. You are chaos without order, fury without justice, and I will hurl you down, monster, as I hurled down the Titans before you. With that, he hurled his first bolt. It streaked through the heavens, brighter than the sun, and struck Typhon across the chest. The monster reeled, his serpent heads shrieking, flames bursting from his wounds. But he did not fall. He rose higher, wings beating hurricanes that blotted out the stars. With a roar, Typhon hurled back mountains torn from the earth, his claws gripping stone as if it were clay. He cast them like pebbles, and the sky rang with their impact. Zeus answered with a storm of thunderbolts, each one shattering stone into dust. The clash became a tempest, lightning against flame, storm against storm. Typhon's breath set forests aflame, while Zeus's bolts quenched them in fire brighter still. The seas rose into walls of water as the winds tore at their surface, ships vanishing like leaves in a gale. The very heavens groaned under their struggle. The constellations dimmed. The moon hid her face behind storm clouds. The stars themselves seemed to tremble in their paths. And still the battle raged. Zeus hurled bolt after bolt, his arms never faltering. Typhon struck with wing and claw, with serpent and flame, his fury unending. Each clash shook the world to its bones. Mortals looked upward and saw not sky, but chaos. Fire and storm churned together, red and white, black and gold. It was as though creation itself had split in two, warring for dominion. At last, the heavens were torn apart, a wound across the sky. Through it shone the endless void, the yawning darkness from before time. The sight chilled even the gods, for it was a reminder, if this battle were lost, creation itself might unravel. Yet neither yielded. Typhon stood, though wounded and burning. Zeus stood, though the storm weighed heavy upon him. The battle in the skies had begun, and it would not end until one lay broken. Chapter 7. The Fall of Zeus. The sky was a storm without end. Zeus had hurled his bolts until the heavens burned white, but Typhon endured. The monster's flesh was torn, his serpent heads charred, yet his fury only grew. With each wound, new fire poured forth, rivers of molten flame that scarred the earth. At last, the giant let loose a roar that broke through thunder itself. His wings carried him higher than any mountain, higher than the storm, until he towered over even Zeus. From his eyes blazed fire like suns, and his serpents hissed as one. "Skyfather, your time is ended." With a sweep of his claw, Typhon struck. The blow landed upon Zeus's chest, hurling him across the firmament. The storm god crashed into the mountains of Thrace, shattering peaks that had stood since the dawn of time. Blood, bright as molten gold, spilled from his wounds and stained the earth. Zeus rose, staggering, lightning dim in his grasp. But Typhon descended, talons like chains of iron, wings blotting out the last light of day. The battle resumed on the ground. Zeus fought with all his might, thunder shaking the stones beneath their feet. But Typhon was relentless. Again and again, his claws tore into the god's flesh, ripping strength from his limbs. Then came the moment the world would never forget. Typhon seized Zeus. His serpents coiled around the king of the gods, binding his arms, dragging him down. From his talons, the monster ripped the sinews of Zeus's hands and feet, the very tendons that gave him strength. With a roar of triumph, Typhon cast the ruined god into a cavern deep beneath Mount Etna. The earth closed around him. The thunder stilled. The storm died. For the first time since time began, Zeus was silent. The gods upon Olympus felt the weight of despair. Hera wept upon her throne. Athena struck her shield in fury, and Poseidon's seas grew restless with rage. But none dared descend, for Typhon's shadow stretched across the world. Mortals, too, felt the silence. They lifted their eyes and found no thunder, no storm. The skies were heavy, and the air thick with dread. Temples were abandoned, sacrifices left unburned, for the gods themselves seemed broken. And upon the throne of the world, Typhon stood victorious. His roar shook the seas, declaring to all creation, the age of the gods is over. The reign of monsters begins. The earth trembled beneath him. Flames rose, the stars dimmed, and far below, in the darkness of his prison, Zeus lay in agony, his power broken, his body bound. Yet within his chest, though faint, the spark of storm still flickered. It was not the end. Chapter 8: The Gods in Despair. Olympus had never known silence like this. The throne of Zeus stood empty, its golden arms cold, its seat veiled in shadow. Once it had blazed with the light of thunder. Now it was nothing but a hollow reminder of a king fallen. The gods gathered in the hall of clouds, their faces pale with fear. Hera, queen of heaven, sat with her hands clasped tightly, her eyes red with grief. "He is gone," she whispered, "the father of gods and men, broken. Who now will stand against Typhon?" Athena struck her spear upon the marble, her voice sharp as steel. "We cannot surrender. If Zeus has fallen, then we must rise in his stead. Better to die in battle than to cower in despair." But Apollo shook his head, his golden hair dim beneath the shadow. "Sister, you do not see the truth. Typhon has broken the strongest of us. His fire scorches even the sky. If we rise, we shall be ashes upon the wind." Hermes, ever swift of tongue, paced restlessly. "And what of mortals? Already they turn from us. Temples are abandoned, offerings rot upon the altars. If we do nothing, our names will fade from memory, and Typhon will rule not just the earth, but the heavens of men's hearts." Poseidon, lord of the sea, rose in fury. His trident clashed against the floor, waves crashing in echo. "I will not bow to this beast. The oceans still obey me, and I shall drown the monster in storms greater than even he can withstand. But Hestia, gentle guardian of the hearth, shook her head. Brother, do not speak in pride. Even the sea cannot quench a fire born of chaos. If you fall, all that is left will crumble. What then will mortals cling to if their gods abandon them one by one? A heavy silence fell. For the first time since time began, the gods were divided not in rivalry, but in fear. Some whispered of surrender, others of flight. A few, like Athena, spoke of vengeance, though no one knew how it might be won. And then came whispers of rebellion. Artemis, swift and untamed, muttered, "If Zeus cannot protect Olympus, perhaps it is time another should rule." Her eyes turned to Poseidon, who stood tall, his trident gleaming. The sea god did not deny it. He gazed at the empty throne, and for a moment, a dangerous hunger flickered in his eyes. Hera rose, her voice sharp. "Do not dare. My husband is not yet dead. His thunder still lives, though faint. Would you betray him while his heart yet beats?" But no answer came. The gods turned away, ashamed yet restless, and in the shadows a figure watched Prometheus, the Titan, friend to mortals, long bound and punished for his defiance. He spoke softly, yet his words carried weight. "Despair blinds you. Zeus is not truly gone, only broken. His strength lies imprisoned, but strength can be reclaimed. There is a way, though it will cost much. But if you falter now, the world will burn in Typhon's fire, and not even gods will survive." All eyes turned to him. Hope stirred, faint as a spark in the ashes. But outside, upon the earth, Typhon's shadow stretched longer. The monster roared across mountains and seas, declaring himself the new lord of creation. And every roar seemed to smother the spark a little more. Chapter 9, Prometheus' Secret Plan. The hall of Olympus was heavy with silence after Prometheus spoke. His chains still clinked at his wrists, relics of the punishment Zeus himself had laid upon him for giving fire to mankind. Yet now, in the darkest hour, all eyes turned to the Titan who had defied heaven. Hera's voice trembled with both suspicion and desperation. "You who betrayed Olympus before, why should we trust your words now?" Prometheus raised his gaze, calm and unyielding. "Because I see further than gods or mortals. Zeus punished me for fire, yet fire is what sustains your worshippers. And now, another fire greater, darker, threatens to consume the world. If Typhon reigns, neither gods nor men will endure. I do not speak for myself, but for the balance of creation." Athena leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "Speak, Titan. What must we do?" Prometheus's voice dropped low, like a whisper of fate. "Typhon has stolen not only Zeus's strength, but his very sinews, the tendons of power that bind flesh and storm together. Without them, Zeus is a shell, unable to rise. Typhon has hidden them in the caverns of the serpent Delphine, deep beneath the earth, guarded by fire and shadow. If they are not recovered, Zeus will wither, and Olympus will fall." A murmur swept the gods. The name of Delphines, the consort of Typhon, filled the hall with dread. Poseidon frowned, gripping his trident. "So we are to descend into the depths and fight this brood creature. Even united, it may devour us." Prometheus shook his head. "No army will succeed. Delphine's lair lies beyond the reach of host or host's strength. It must be done with cunning. A few must go, those swift and clever enough to evade her gaze, and strong enough to escape with what they steal." Hermes smirked. though his eyes betrayed unease. Swift and clever, you mean me. Athena placed a hand upon her shield, and strong enough that will be mine to bear. Prometheus nodded. Yes, together, perhaps you may succeed. But beware, Delphine is not the only guardian. Typhon's shadows linger there, and even his absence is like fire upon the skin. To fail is to die. If you die, the last hope dies with you. A hush fell. Hera rose, her voice trembling but resolute. Then it is decided. Hermes and Athena shall descend into the depths, bring back the sinews of Zeus, or all is lost. But not all were content. Artemis frowned, whispering to Apollo, "If Zeus rises again, will he not punish us for doubting him, for daring to think of another to rule?" Apollo only shook his head. Better a stern king than no world at all. As the gods debated, Prometheus turned his gaze to the horizon. Beyond the marble halls, the shadow of Typhon burned red against the sky. His laughter rolled like thunder over the mountains. Time was short. Hermes straightened his cloak, his caduceus staff gleaming faintly. "Well then, shall we steal from a monster?" Athena raised her spear, her eyes burning with resolve. For Olympus, for Zeus, for the world. And so the plan was set. The first step toward doom was about to begin. Chong 9 Prometheus' secret plan, the Hall of Olympus, was heavy with silence after Prometheus spoke. His chains still clinked at his wrists, relics of the punishment Zeus himself had laid upon him for giving fire to mankind. Yet now, in the darkest hour, all eyes turned to the Titan who had defied heaven. Hera's voice trembled with both suspicion and desperation. "You who betrayed Olympus before, why should we trust your words now?" Prometheus raised his gaze, calm and unyielding. "Because I see further than gods or mortals. Zeus punished me for fire, yet fire is what sustains your worshippers. And now, another fire greater, darker, threatens to consume the world. If Typhon reigns, neither gods nor men will endure. I do not speak for myself, but for the balance of creation." Athena leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "Speak, Titan. What must we do?" Prometheus's voice dropped low, like a whisper of fate. "Typhon has stolen not only Zeus's strength, but his very sinews, the tendons of power that bind flesh and storm together. Without them, Zeus is a shell, unable to rise. Typhon has hidden them in the caverns of the serpent Delphine, deep beneath the earth, guarded by fire and shadow. If they are not recovered, Zeus will wither and Olympus will fall." A murmur swept the gods. The name of Delphine's, the consort of Typhon filled the hall with dread. Poseidon frowned, gripping his trident. "So we are to descend into the depths and fight this brood creature. Even united, it may devour us." Prometheus shook his head. "No army will succeed. Delphine's lair lies beyond the reach of host or host's strength. It must be done with cunning. A few must go, those swift and clever enough to evade her gaze, and strong enough to escape with what they steal." Hermes smirked, though his eyes betrayed unease. "Swift and clever, you mean me." Athena placed a hand upon her shield. "And strong enough that will be mine to bear." Prometheus nodded. "Yes, together, perhaps you may succeed. But beware, Delphine is not the only guardian. Typhon's shadows linger there, and even his absence is like fire upon the skin. To fail is to die. If you die, the last hope dies with you." A hush fell. Hera rose, her voice trembling but resolute. "Then it is decided. Hermes and Athena shall descend into the depths, bring back the sinews of Zeus, or all is lost. But not all were content. Artemis frowned, whispering to Apollo, "If Zeus rises again, will he not punish us for doubting him, for daring to think of another to rule?" Apollo only shook his head. Better a stern king than no world at all. As the gods debated, Prometheus turned his gaze to the horizon. Beyond the marble halls, the shadow of Typhon burned red against the sky. His laughter rolled like thunder over the mountains. Time was short. Hermes straightened his cloak, his caduceus staff gleaming faintly. "Well then, shall we steal from a monster?" Athena raised her spear, her eyes burning with resolve. For Olympus, for Zeus, for the world. And so the plan was set. The first step toward hope or toward doom was about to begin. Chapter 11. The Theft of the Sinews. The cavern of Delphine roared with fire and chaos. Athena's shield was blackened, her spear trembling under the crushing weight of the serpent's coils. Hermes darted like lightning between her strikes, his caduceus flashing in feints and diversions. Yet still Delphine pressed forward, her hiss a storm of hatred. "You cannot win," she snarled, her golden eyes blazing. "Your father's strength is mine, and with it, I will see Typhon crowned the new king of heaven." Athena gritted her teeth, her arms straining against the serpent's claws. "Then we shall steal it back, monster. With a sudden cry, she slammed her shield into Delphine's face, forcing the serpent to reel. Fire erupted from her staff, but Hermes seized the moment. With a blur of wings, he raced past her coils and into the depths of the cavern. There, behind the throne of bones, he saw them clearly for the first time. Chains of molten iron coiled around a bundle of living flesh, the sinews of Zeus, torn from his body, yet still pulsing with lightning. The glow of storm flickered faintly within them, like a dying flame yearning for air. The heat was unbearable. Even the winged sandals of Hermes scorched against the stone, but he pressed on, wrapping his cloak around his arms and reaching for the chains. Pain seared through him. Fire bit into his flesh, and his vision blurred with white agony. Still he pulled, straining with all the cunning and swiftness he possessed. Behind him, Delphine roared. She had seen, her tail lashed across the cavern, striking the walls and sending rocks crashing down. Athena hurled herself into the path, spear clashing with claw, shield straining against the serpent's fury. Hermes, hurry! The chains resisted, the fire burned. Hermes staggered, his breath ragged, his skin blistering from the heat. Desperation gripped him until a memory flashed. Prometheus's words, cunning, not strength, will free him. Hermes's eyes narrowed. From his belt he drew a dagger of celestial bronze, not to break the chains, but to unfasten them. His hands moved quick as thought, slipping between the flames, turning lock and link, until the chains fell open with a clang that echoed like thunder. At once, the sinews surged into his arms, alive and writhing. Lightning coursed through him, searing, blinding, as if the very storm of Zeus had entered his veins. Hermes cried out, nearly collapsing under its weight, but he clutched the bundle to his chest and turned. Got it. Delphian screamed in fury, her coils thrashing, her fire blazing hotter than ever. Athena staggered beneath the onslaught, her shield cracking, her spear splintering. Hermes, go, she shouted. Fly, Olympus must not fall. Hermes hesitated, torn between fleeing with Zeus's strength and staying to fight beside his sister. But Athena's gaze was resolute, unyielding. She would not let him falter. With a beat of his sandals, Hermes launched into the air. Streaking toward the cavern's mouth, the sinews of Zeus clutched tight. Delphine shrieked, lunging after him, her coils striking like living storms. But Athena stood firm, slamming her broken spear into the ground. A wall of divine light flared around her, halting the serpent's pursuit for one desperate heartbeat. It was enough. Hermes burst from the cavern, the night sky above him roaring with thunder for the first time since Zeus's fall. In his arms, the sinews glowed brighter, alive with the promise of power yet to be restored. Behind him, Athena's cry rang out defiance against the monster's fury. The theft was complete, but the cost was yet unknown. Chapter 12. The Return of Zeus. The skies above Olympus had long been silent. No thunder rolled, no lightning split the heavens. Mortals whispered in fear, and even the gods dared not lift their eyes. But on this night, a storm began to stir. Hermes ascended the peak, his arms clutching the sinews of Zeus, still glowing with lightning. The gods gathered in awe and fear. Hera, Athena, wounded yet defiant. Poseidon, grim, Apollo pale, Hestia weeping softly by her flame. All watched as Hermes laid the divine flesh upon the broken body of their king, deep within the cavern of Mount Etna, where Typhon had cast him down. For a moment there was nothing, then light. The sinews leaped to Zeus like living fire, fusing once more with his frame. his chest heaved, his eyes opened, blazing with the fury of storms. From his body burst thunder, rolling across the heavens, shaking the world awake. Zeus rose. His voice was thunder itself. Who dared think the storm could be chained? Who thought the fire of Olympus could be quenched? I am Zeus, father of gods and men, and I rise again. The mountain split with his cry. Bolts of purest lightning leaped from his hands, brighter than the sun, burning away the shadows that had clung to the earth since his fall. The gods fell to their knees, not in fear, but in reverence. Hope blazed anew in their hearts. But far across the land, Typhon heard the monster's roar, shook seas and skies. You live still, old thunderer. Then I shall tear you down again. No chain will bind me, no storm will strike me down. Come and meet your doom. The earth quaked as Typhon rose, wings blotting out the stars, his fire turning night to day. And Zeus answered, high above. Storm and fire clashed once more, but this time Zeus was whole. His bolts rained down like 1,000 suns, shattering mountains, boiling seas. Typhon fought with claw and flame, but each strike was met with thunder, each roar drowned by the storm. The heavens themselves became the battlefield. At last, with all his might, Zeus summoned a bolt, unlike any before, lightning forged from sky, earth, sea, and fire itself. He hurled it with a cry that echoed across creation. Fall, chaos-born, and let order rule eternal. The bolt struck Typhon square in the heart. The monster screamed, his wings ablaze, his serpents writhing in agony. He staggered, fell, and the earth opened beneath him. Down he was cast, bound beneath Mount Etna, where fire and stone would chain him for all time. His roars still rumbled there, they say, in the voice of the volcano, but never again would he rise to threaten heaven. Zeus descended, his thunder crowned upon Olympus once more. He raised his hand, and the storm calmed. He spoke, not with pride, but with solemnity. The trial has passed. Olympus endures. Let the gods stand united, for only thus can the world be kept from shadow. The gods cheered, their voices like a hymn across the heavens. Mortals lifted their eyes and beheld thunder once more, not as terror, but as a promise that order had triumphed, and their prayers were heard. Thus ended the last trial of Zeus, the war of gods and monster, the battle that shook the bones of the world. And so long as thunder rolls across the sky, men remember, the storm is the voice of Zeus, who rose from defeat to save creation. Epilogue. The eternal storm peace returned to Olympus, but it was a peace forged in fire. The gods stood together once more upon the high mountain, their thrones restored, their faith renewed. Mortals rebuilt their temples and offered sacrifice again, raising their hands to the heavens with prayers of gratitude. The world, though scarred by flame and storm, endured. Yet, in the silence that followed, all knew the truth. The battle had changed them. Zeus sat upon his throne, his eyes still blazing with stormlight. He bore the marks of his trial, the scars of Typhon's claws, the memory of chains in the earth. No longer was he the untouchable king. He was the god who had fallen and risen, stronger for the ordeal. He spoke to the gods. Let this be remembered for all time. Not even Olympus is unbreakable. Pride blinds, division weakens, and in such shadows, chaos breeds. But unity, faith, courage, sacrifice, this is the shield that guards creation. So long as we stand together, no monster shall unmake the world. The gods bowed their heads, each recalling their own part. Hera's grief, Athena's defiance, Hermes's daring theft, Prometheus's wisdom, Poseidon's wrath restrained, Hestia's quiet flame. Each had borne a burden, and each was changed. And beneath Mount Etna, Typhon stirred. His roars rumbled through the earth, echoing in fire and smoke. Mortals, hearing the mountain's fury, whispered that the monster still fought against his bonds. Priests told them, "Fear not. Those are the cries of Typhon, bound by Zeus's thunder. As long as storms roll across the sky, the Father of gods holds him fast." And so, every bolt of lightning, every clap of thunder, was remembered not as wrath alone, but as a promise that Zeus, the eternal storm, watched over the world. Yet Prometheus, wise and far-seeing, turned his gaze beyond the horizon. He knew the truth that few dared speak. Chaos never dies, it only waits. Giants yet slept in the deep, and fate spun threads even the gods could not sever. One day, new trials would rise, but for now Olympus endured. The heavens glittered with stars, the thunder rolled like a heartbeat across the sky, and mortals, looking upward, whispered with both fear and reverence, "The storm is Zeus. The storm is order. The storm is eternal."